Hello, it's Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Coming to the blog post we want to share with you, of course, review the latest in social media and technology. We are reviewing today another phone versus smartphone comparison between two powerhouse phones here, the HTC Droid Incredible 4G LTE through Verizon and the AT&T HTC One X, and both are great phones. Now, be sure to subscribe to the ChrisVossShow.com email so you can get all the latest updates we're doing as we review all the latest phones that come from all the major, I think it's 4 or 5 different phone networks. And of course, check us out on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube videos so you can get all the latest and coolest phones we're doing. We've been doing a number of videos on iPhone 5 videos, so make sure you check out all those comparison videos. Let's get into this. The Verizon phone is provided to us by Verizon. You can see their website at verizonwireless.com. That's verizonwireless.com. You can also see AT&T.com. That's AT&T.com. See all the products for AT&T that are found there. And thanks to both companies for providing the phones for us to review and share with you. So let's get into the HTC product, and we'll get to know it some more and what it's all about. Let's get in here. Now with the HTC Droid Incredible, we're looking at a size of 4.82 in height, 2.4 wide, 0.46 in depth. It's got a weight of 4.66 on its weight, and it has a size of screen which is 540 by 960 pixels, 4 inches, and it runs on Android 4.0 software is what it comes out of the box. I believe we have 4.03 on it currently now, and has HTC Sense UI 4.0. It has upgradable memory of up to 32 gigabytes with a micro SD slot that you can take and do. It comes with 8 gigabytes of storage, 1 gigabyte of RAM. It's very fast, partially because of that 8 gigabytes of storage, and it really rocks. It's an 8 megapixel back camera phone with front-facing camera is 1.3 megapixel, back is 1080p, 30 frames per second, front is 720p, and it runs on a Qualcomm Snapdragon dual-core 1.2 gigahertz processor. So it's a very fast little phone. We really like it. Standard battery is a 1700, and it'll rock and roll. And both these phones, of course, come with the Beats audio on them. And I believe they're both, from what I understand, NFC compliant. They have NFC that you can take and use in both these phones. So very cool. The HTC One X on the right-hand side is 5.3 inches in height, 2.75 width, 0.38 in thickness with a 4.75 ounce weight. It has a 1800 milliamp battery, LCD, color TFT, TFD, resolution screen of 700 by 1280 pixels, 4.7 in size on the screen, Super LCD. It comes with the OS Android 4.03. We've upgraded to 4.04 as I mentioned before. HTC Sense 4 UI. It's got a 1.5 gigahertz Qualcomm processor, Snapdragon S4, dual core, and that's in the US version. The memory is 16 gigabytes internal storage. 12.1 gigabytes internal storage available to user, and 1 gigabytes of RAM. On the camera, it has a 8 megapixel backside camera. Resolution on the front is forward-facing cameras 1.3 megapixel, and it's a VGA recorder. And of course, on the back, you can do 1080p resolution HD. So both are great phones in our experience for them. We've had actually a couple of them for a while now, so we've gotten a chance to really play with them and test them out. Both are running on, of course, the Android product. One thing that's interesting about the 4.04 update that came with the AT&T HTC One X was, up until recently, this, and also on the Droid, this is the same, this button was the recent apps button. And in doing the recent apps button, with the 4.04 update from HTC and AT&T, they changed this to where you can now turn this recent apps button into also a menu. One of the things you can see with both these menus, you have the back button, the home button, and recent apps button on both devices, is that there's no menu button as there are on many Android phones. What HTC did with this is they built into the HTC Sense product a menu inside of it so that you can be able to correlate your way around manage your way around, if you will. So what they did do with the 4.04 update on this phone, the One X, is they made it so you can change this also to a menu button. You can also double tap it to do recent apps. You can use it for both buttons. We're hoping they'll do the same for the Verizon HTC Droid Incredible and upgrading it to 4.04, but who knows? It's up to them, and I suppose they'll let us know when they decide what they want to do with it. Both phones are great phones and powerhouse phones when it really comes down to it. They really rock. You'll see the benchmarking and photographs here in a second. On the top here, we have the speaker, front-facing speaker, which is for your phone calls. We have the front-facing camera here. We went through the buttons at the bottom. You can see here we, of course, on the HTC One X have the speaker and the front-facing camera speaker for calls, and then, of course, the buttons on the bottom. You can see there's a distinctive difference in the size of the screen of both these devices, and really an edge of comfort. The AT&T One X is a huge device. Great for watching videos, great for playing games. For those of you who have smaller hands, it might seem like a very large phone to take and deal with. I tend to like both phones, and they seem to fit very well in my hands. Let's flip over the backs so we can see the backs and how they look. Now the HTC One X has kind of a curved back to it, which makes it fit very ergonomically into your hands. Also, the HTC Droid has this kind of rubberized back with a grip to it. Feels very comfortable, and these little angles that you see actually fit your hand very well in your fingers when you hold the device in them. You can see here at the top we have the flash or lamp button. We have a camera eye. We have a very small speaker. I was kind of bummed out about the speaker. I kind of like bigger speakers to be able to hear what I'm doing, but it seems to hold the job up okay. The only problem is if you do set the device down on its back on a table or desk, it tends to get a little muffled. These both have Beats audio. I really like the Beats audio experience. I like the sound enhancement that it brings to the music, and if you have the Beats audio earphone line, that will bring an enhancement even further still. Once you plug in the earphones or headphones, you get great Beats audio, and if you don't like it, you can always turn off. Now, on the HTC One X, we have the rear-facing camera. It's a little raised. One thing I've always been concerned about it is scraping the edge of it, because it lays flat against the device when the device is rounded on the back, so when it sits, the camera is exposed. So you definitely want to get a case on it so you don't scratch up the camera lens, as you do with all these different phones. But I've been especially worried about this one because the edge hits right there. You've got the flash lamp, of course, it's there. Now, one thing this HTC product has with the One series is they have these little digits they put in here. What this is designed to do is to fit into holders that will interact with HDMI TV or sync with your computer. They're specialized holders that, you know, they basically can play like videos, things of that nature, but they will also charge and sync your devices through those little plugs. Pretty cool technology. They're add-ons so you can take and get through HTC. You have the small speaker that's down here at the bottom. Now, with the HTC One X, it's a solid piece, solid body phone. There's no way to pull it apart. But with the HTC Droid, it has a pull-off back. And with the pull-off back, we have the ability, of course, to expand its memory. You can stick it in the slot right here. Here's the SIM card slot. And if you want to buy more batteries and pull them on and off, you can also do that. So we have the pull-off back there, which is very good. Okay, so here you can see the bottoms of both devices. There's basically a small microphone hole here and a small microphone hole here on the bottom. Not much difference between the two of them going on the bottoms. On the top, what we're looking at is we're looking at the power button. It has a nice red power button to it. Has a microphone hole here and a earphone plug. And there's also a power button here, an earplug, and a microphone hole on the One X. Okay, down the left-hand side, you can see here we just have a USB connector for plugging in and out the USB and charging, syncing, all that sort of good stuff. Same thing with a micro USB over here for syncing and charging and all that cool stuff. Both are pretty cool devices. The Droid's pretty fun because it always says that Droid to you. Droid, you know, like the commercial. So it'll say Droid to you on different announcements if that's what you allow it to keep doing after you get the phone. You can program it otherwise to give you other sort of tonalities to use for your announcements. You can see here they both got wonderful screens. You have all the ability that you would have with normal Android phones to take and do widgets and everything else that you're familiar with, all the programming that you may want to take an add-on for little doodad gadgets, all that good stuff. You can see here they both have finite swipe where they both go from one end to the other, and then you have to backtrack to them, or you can hit the home button, of course. Let's take a look at the notifications menu. Pretty much about the same here when it comes to look, feel, texture, all that sort of good stuff. Nothing really special between the two devices. If you're familiar with the Android products, it's got a great system on it. Hopefully these will both go up to maybe Jelly Bean, or like I said, hopefully the Droid will come up to at least 4.04. That remains to be seen, as Jelly Bean is just barely starting to roll out right now. So there you go. Let's get into some of the details of both these devices. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is a speed test. And in the speed test, these are going to be from the speed test log. You'll notice that we still have the Wi-Fi running, but we're going to reference the log that we have on the speed test so that we can take and utilize just the data that they give us. There, if I can find the speed test on the other device. One puts things in alphabetical orders, the other does not. There we go, speed tests. So, these are the speed tests that we got from each of the individual networks. Now, we're not really trying to compete both networks one against each other, but you can see what the devices were able to pull off from their respective networks. The Verizon over here and the AT&T over here with the HTC One X. You can see the speeds that we took and got out of both devices and how we did. Okay, so now we can see the Geekbench test too on how each of these devices fared. The Droid came in at 1192. The One X came in at 957. So you can see how they broke down. You can see the integer scores, floating point, memory, and the stream. Let's take a look down these. You can pause this at any time if you want to take and do that. So let's page down. See the floating point performance and the breakdowns. You see the memory performance scores and stream performance. Okay, so here using the quadrant standard test, you can see that the Droid came in very high. And what's kind of interesting is show below some other HTC One X's. We find these numbers do tend to change depending upon what OS systems they're using. We found ours moved around. You can see here the HTC One X here actually outperforms other HTC One X's in the marketplace, probably because our OS has been updated, the latest software update. The others have not, on average. So, pretty interesting test. You can see down here all the totals, 4890 for the One X and 4484 for the Droid. You know, a lot of these benchmarking standards too have a lot of variables to them, so there's always that when it comes down to it. Alright, so here we are with the AnTuTu benchmark scores, and of course the great thing about these apps we use on the Android is most of them are free. You can download them at home and compare them to phones you're using now and decide which phones you may want to upgrade to. You can see here that the Verizon Droid got 6,019 against the AT&T One X, which got 6686. You can see the breakdown of the CPU, integers, and everything applicable there. Okay, so here we can see the pass mark performance test we did on both devices. The One X actually scored really well, 1731 against 1554 on the Droid. With the CPU tests, the Droid actually came out higher at 3752 against 3595 on the CPU test for the One X. Disk test, read, write, all that good stuff, 1921 on the Droid, beaten by the One X at 3492. Memory test, 1574 against 1593, so fairly close there. And 2D graphics, 1733, much better on the Droid over the One X at 1470. 3D graphics, 546 against 3D graphics, 663 overall for the HTC One X. Okay, so here we can see the AND-E bench marking stuff where we test the Java threads and how fast each device can process them. For the Droid, it processed 4797 on the native threads, and on Java threads 149. For the One X, 3766, and on Java 126. So the Droid came out better on that rating. Hi folks, okay, here's the billion counter. We can take and do a comparison. It just tests how fast each CPU can get to billion count. So the devices got to 24 seconds, roughly 25 seconds with the Droid, and with the One X, 27 seconds. So Droid beat it there. Okay, so here we can see with both devices with the GL benchmark 2.1.5. We've got a GL benchmark on the Droid of 6,555 frames at 58 frames per second, where with the One X we have 5368 frames at 48 frames per second. Okay, so here we can see a GPS test, and what we're doing is testing how many satellites each device can take and pick up. On the Droid, it's picking up about 18, using about 12. Same thing pretty much with the One X. It's coming with an accuracy of 10 to 13 feet. Looks like the One X is struggling to kind of get there. Normally it scores pretty well when we do reviews on it, but looks like for right now it's right at about 26 feet. Okay, so you can see how both these devices came out. The total frames per second overall on the One X came out to frames per second 29.9. It's pretty much 30 frames per second. Looks like the Droid came out at 42 frames per second overall. Pretty darn powerful. Okay, so here we have our SunSpider scores, and this tests JavaScript and also serving of web pages. The lower number is the better number you want to have here. You can see here the Droid came in with SunSpider benchmark results at 1840.3 milliseconds, and the One X came in at 1167.8 milliseconds. Okay, so now here's the Verizon Droid hotspot results we got. We of course pulled this into an iPad 3, and these are the results we got on their speed in speed testing it through the Verizon. Performed exceptionally well in outputting the results for us. We're very impressed with the numbers it got. Now of course an iPad 3 is going to suck a lot of data, so it did extremely well in performance with this with the Droid. Okay, so now here we can see the hotspot server tests on the HTC One X. This is going to be the numbers where we have the HTC One X acting as a hotspot, and of course we're putting this through an iPad 3, which tends to pull a lot of really good data. So you can see the results here on the numbers. This is coming from, of course, the AT&T network with the phone acting as a hotspot. So you can see those numbers there. Okay, so here you can see we're doing a test. We're doing a Skype call using Wi-Fi. This is a localized Wi-Fi. And you can see here the video comes out really well across on my iPad 3 that we're receiving the video on. So it's got a great front-facing camera. It plays really good detail on the feedback that's coming from the other device. So you can see here it performs very well in face-to-face Skype and calls that you might make with video and your front-facing camera. It does a really good job. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're testing the camera, the front-facing camera, with a Skype video call. And in this case, we are using the T-Mobile network. So we're using not a localized Wi-Fi as we were before, but we're using the T-Mobile network. And you can see here the feed comes out. You can almost see it the same coming out across our system that we're taking using here. So it plays the video that's coming from a source very well and portrays it very well over here. So you can see here the front-facing camera does a great job. Alright, so here we are on a video call with the HTC One X, and you can see here we got fairly good results in the front-facing camera. Everything's going well. This is on a localized Wi-Fi internet. We're feeding off to an iPad 3, so you can kind of see how well that performs and how well it looks. Okay, so here we're using the AT&T service to take and do the video call. There's some difference in the quality that we're seeing with the HTC One front-facing camera, and I don't think it's a difference of AT&T's service. It really does look like it's not quite as quality for a front-facing camera that we're getting over here on the iPad 3 that we got on the S. It could be the S is definitely faster in a lot of the benchmarking tests that we ran. But this gives you a good idea. You can compare apples to apples with this. This is running through AT&T's network, so you can see how the results are that way. Looks like both phones perform very well and very fast. Okay, now, so this has your pretty much your standard Android operating system, especially the 4.03 or HTC software. If you've taken and seen it, you have the ability to control, of course, up here your flash and all that good stuff. The indicator light's not coming on because they have the battery low. You have your settings button that you can take and hit. You have access to your camera, front, back, self-timer, image resolution changes you want to make, video quality, of course, you can adjust up and down, the review duration of image adjustments that you want to take and make to the quality of the image. You can adjust exposure and all that good stuff. Let's take a look at a few others. Let's see, ISO, white balance. The real nice thing about the Android line, of course, you have a whole lot more customization of the camera than you do with other OSs. Camera options here, you can see autofocus, face detection, smile, capture camera, all that sort of good stuff. Let's take a look at, you've got auto upload if you want to take and do this. Camera interface where you've got grid, shutter, different video options you may have for video stabilization, different camera options. I think we covered that. So you have all that available to you there. There's different basically camera scenes that you can take and pre-program into the phone so that you can get different lighting scenarios and stuff like that. You can choose HDR, panorama, portrait, group portrait, whiteboard, low light, close-up, etc., etc. And the camera will adjust itself to what it needs to do. You've got a zoom here, in and out, and then you also have the feature of where you have the ability to add different effects. Now, the great thing about these effects is they'll show up real time in the camera so that you can get an idea as to how the effects will look when you do your shot. So, and of course, you can change these to however you want to take and do that. You can, of course, focus by touching anywhere on the screen so that you can get the subject you want into focus. You also have a shutter button for your camera and then a video button which activates your video. Let's take a look at some of the camera shots that we did. Okay, so now let's take a look at the camera shots that we got out of the HTC camera. It seems to be compliant with a lot of the different rear cameras that we see in the HTC product line, especially the HTC One product line. You can see here it takes great sharp photos, great detail, all that good stuff. One thing we have noticed, like I mentioned with the HTC cameras, is the ones of late have kind of jacked up the yellow, blues, and greens in the photos. You can see a picture here, and we use this as a way to show you what happens in certain environments. You can see here, and this is much more defined on the actual camera itself, it's coming through very differently, but the greens come through very thick on here, and of course the floor looks very yellow when this is actually more of a brown color. Now we find that with most of the HTC One phones they do that, and the reason that we presume that they do that is because it makes your photos you take in other environments much more brighter. The images pop with yellow, blues, greens popping out. The challenge is when you get into an environment like this where it's dominated by yellows, blues, and greens, it tends to overrun the camera. So this is one of the reasons that we use this as a test. You can see it's got great detail on the floor. It takes great pictures. You can adjust some of these settings out by going into the customization and everything else. Is it bad? We don't think so. But definitely you want to be aware of it when you go into a yellow, blue, and green environment. Here once again the video, and this is another thing that kind of surprised me on the video. The aperture area that it takes video, it wasn't as wide as some of the other areas that we've seen with other cameras. But it still takes great video, and there's no problem there. You can still see great detail in the shot. Here's a low light shot, and it performed really well with the low light shot and flash shots. Very impressive. This will take a second to kick into gear with the lamp, but you can see here it does a great darken low light shot. You can see the image very well. It doesn't have any problem getting it light up and being able to see detail. Same thing with the flash. It takes a great flash photo. You can see here very well in detail. Now this is a flash in low light, I should say, where we're taking it, and this is almost a darkened image here. You can see great detail on the bike, everything else. This is a great shot for a low light shot. Colors come in really rich, so it performs really well in low light, which was very impressive, and it performs in normal light just as well. So we really like the camera, very impressive. HTC is building a good one. Okay, so now I'm taking a look at the HTC One X. Everything's pretty much similar, everything in its operation, how it operates, not much changes here. There evidently was some small improvements to the camera that you won't notice on the back end that was found in the 4.04 update. Once again, really great pictures that I love with the with the X. The pictures do seem to be better, but maybe it's because I'm seeing them through a bigger screen. It's not much, it's very slight, but you can see here once again, lots of yellows, lots of greens, but it takes great photos and it brings out the brightness very well. Let's take a look at video. Video, once again, I'm pretty sure these probably have the same internal build of camera. They both take really great video shots. You almost can't really notice the difference other than the fact that one screen is bigger than the other. Here's a low light shot. Of course, you can see here the colors pop. This is completely dark. It brought everything out and did very well in a shoot. Same thing with a low light video situation here. Performed very well at getting this stuff done. So yeah. Okay, folks, so that's it. As you can see, both devices are very powerful in their own right. They really rock and roll. I've loved and enjoyed both of them, and they're great phones. So decide which one is best for you. Be sure to check them out. You can go to VerizonWireless.com and check out the Droid HTC Incredible 4G LTE, and you also can go to AT&T.com, check out the HTC One X, and of course with both companies, all their wonderful phones. Watch for us to be reviewing them. It'll be fun. They'll always be sending us new stuff, and we'll be putting them here on the ChrisVossShow.com. Be sure to subscribe to our channels so you can get all the latest and greatest stuff. Thank you for coming by. Chris Voss tested, Chris Voss approved. Tell them Chris Voss sent you. Thanks for coming by.